Welcome to In Session Taking Back Control. This podcast contains discussions on topics related to mental health, which may include sensitive and potentially triggering information regarding violence, abuse, addictions, and other mental health conditions. The experiences shared by our guests are personal and represent their individual perspectives. They have voluntarily agreed to share their stories with the aim of fostering understanding and awareness. The content of this podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. It is not a substitute for seeking professional help, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified mental health professional for any concerns or questions related to your health and well-being. Listener discretion is advised. If you find any content distressing, we encourage you to pause the episode and seek support from a trusted individual or a mental health professional. Thank you for listening to In Session Taking Back Control, and we hope that the conversations that we share contribute to a deeper understanding of mental health. Welcome, Tregs. It's nice to have you here and to join me in Session Taking Back Control. Today, in this session, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into your life, your experiences, some of the challenges that you've had as well, maybe in life, and what you've done to work around taking back control around those challenges. Just before we start, for anybody that doesn't know you, I know you're pretty popular on social media, but for anybody who doesn't, just tell us a wee bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, so first things first, Stefan, I really appreciate you having me on. Like I said to you before we start recording, I love talking about health, fitness, mental health, spirituality, and so an opportunity to come on and talk about that, I'm really, really grateful. So my name is Mark Tregilgas. It's pronounced Tregilgas. And as I said to my kids, welcome to a world of trying to pronounce your name a million times. I've been called all types of things, including Trelewis, Turtle Gas, the list goes on. But it's actually Cornish, my surname. So it's Tregilgas, but just call me Tregs. Everyone calls me Tregs. Nobody calls me Mark, apart from my mum, if I've done something wrong. So I'm a 45-year-old fitness coach. I come from Gloucestershire originally. I moved to Wales in 1997. Showing my age now, to do a degree at the University of Glamorgan, which is now the University of South Wales, in English and Media. Ended up becoming a nightclub promoter and organising house and garage raves up until the age of 23. Then went on a kind of few years of sort of self-discovery before getting into the fitness industry. When I did a PT course at the age of 26. Set up my PT business at 27. I've been in the industry now for almost 18 years, and since then, I've set up sort of multiple businesses from my boot camps and to my online business and brand, which most people will know me for, which is 30 Plus Men's Fitness. So these days I spend sort of part-time in the gym and a lot of my time online serving guys. Generally now, most of my clients are sort of over the age of 35, because as I've gotten older, my audience has grown older with me, and my passion for coaching is greater than ever. I always say this to friends and clients that I'm 45 now. I feel pretty fit and healthy. Will I be doing live kettlebell workouts when I'm 65? Well, hopefully I'll be able to have the capacity to do them, but maybe my coaching will evolve. You know, I'm always going to be involved in coaching. I love it. I have no plans to ever get out of the industry of serving people and helping them become the best version of themselves. And like I said to my two boys, John, who is 12 next month, and Elliot is 10, if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Self-employment brings many, many challenges, but I've been self-employed all my life, so I'm unemployable, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Brilliant. I mean, a great introduction, and what a sweep through your life, you know, and a whistle-stop tour. And great advice for your kids as well. You know, you're bang on. I think that's exactly it. If you do find something that you love, hold on to it. Find your passion and get stuck in. But and it sounds like, look, watching all the stuff that you've done online and the stuff that you've talked about has been phenomenal. I mean, over 10,000 followers on socials. All focused around men and men's health. But just before we get into that stuff, Tregs, what I tend to do is I would like to take you back to just the early days, so just the early beginning. So tell me a wee bit about, you know, your childhood, and what was your early life like?
was born in Gloucester. My mum and dad both still alive. My dad, John, he lives with me. He's retired now. My mum, Linda, she lives in the Forest of Dean. They split at quite an early age, but always remained amicable. So I spent a lot of time with my mum. And I grew up in an area called Tuffley, which is just quite a modest area. And then when I was about 11, moved to a place called Robinswood. Again, lived with my mum. Was big into football, obviously playing outside with my mates all the time. And then when I went to secondary school, I discovered a passion for cross-country running. So I was very lucky. My mum was an aerobics instructor when I was growing up. And because, like, I was with her a lot of the time, I didn't have any brothers or sisters, I'd go to her classes during the week. She didn't have childcare. So she'd be up doing, like, grapevines in front of, like, 50 women in aerobics class. And I think that's probably where I got my passion for getting out in front of people. So I'd go to her classes. My dad was always heavily involved in taking me to football, taking all my mates to football. He was a carpenter, so we had like a big transit van, and all the lads would be sat in the back, on crates, and there'd be saws there, and drills, electrical boxes, but it was great. And he used to help out with the football training too. So when I got into cross country, I actually did really, really well. I started to represent the Southwest and travelled all over. My dad would take me to my cross country races. I also got into mountain biking, which I did for a couple of years. But let's just say Gloucester wasn't the best place to have a nice mountain bike, and I ended up having too nicked. And I lost my sort of enthusiasm for it then. But prior to that, my mum would take me all over the place, and I'd be doing mountain biking. So I was really, really active as a kid.
Right. And I heard a health and safety warning there in the back of your dad's transit van with swords and drills kicking about. My dad had one of those vans as well. He used to put up aerials and satellites, and you're sitting in the back on top of nails and screws and stuff, and it was just the way it was, eh?
Great memories, mate. Great memories, yeah. The building, dude. The building.
That's health and safety's out the window. But I remember you just before we talked about this on the podcast, you talked to me as well about the difficulty of having of being overweight as a child as well. But you sounded like you were pretty active as a kid. So where did that come in? At what point was there a transition or?
Yeah, so what happened, and I've been quite open and honest about this when I had CBT therapy, which I'll talk about somewhere down the line, is, and this is really interesting because I look a lot at human behavior, psychology, and why people have ended up like they are. So my story was very simple, and I only realized this when we did CBT therapy, and the therapist did exactly what you said. Let's go back to the beginning. And you just sort of find out where something happens because, people aren't born alcoholics, they're not born drug addicts, they're not born gamblers, they're not born addicted to food. Something happens along the way that sends them off on a little trajectory where they're a little bit off kill. And mine wasn't particularly traumatic. My mum and dad were separated. I lived in Tuffley, playing football with my mates every night. And then when I was about 11, just about to go to secondary school, she met someone and we moved 5 miles away. No, it's probably 9 or 10 at the time. It wasn't like particularly traumatic. I got on well with the guy. It was a nice house, but it was 5 miles away from my mates. And no longer was I going out and playing football in the fields every night. And again, this only dropped when I had CBT therapy. And it was too far for me to ride my BMX, down to, I still in my head got the journey from that house to where I used to live. And, for an adult, it's nothing. It's like 10 minutes in the car. But when you're a kid, it's like, cycling to a foreign country. My mum didn't want that. So I basically replaced playing football with my mates with getting home from school, sitting in my room, playing my Atari 65XE, games like, the Football Manager stuff, and if it would load, a 50% chance of loading, you put a little cassette in, it'd be like, and Centipede, loved that game. But I basically just sat and I ate. I replaced playing football with my friend with eating. And what I realised now is at the time is I was lonely. And this is not like a pity me party. This is like, I'm aware that's where my poor eating habits started. And so I essentially gained weight because, again, I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so I didn't have to share food with anyone. My mum would often be home from work late. This all came up in therapy. I was able to get easy access to the cupboards and have food, blah, blah, blah. And so I gained weight. And that's kind of like where my battles with weight started around that age. But the interesting thing is when I went to secondary school and I was carrying a little bit of timber, on the first week or so, they said in PE, right, guys, you're going to do cross country today. And I was like, what's that? And they were like, well, there's a local hill, Robinswood Hill. It's a 3-mile run. PE teacher's going to go first, you follow him. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm slow. I was always last in primary school on the 100-meter sprint or whatever it was. This is going to be terrible. But I knew I'd been out for a few little runs with my mum, and I might be able to do it at a slower pace. Anyway, lo and behold, all these kids went sprinting out the gate. Within a minute, they're all on their bloody, their hands on their knees. They're all puffing. And I'm like, oh, hold on. Chubby old Tregs here. Just keep it along. Just a steady pace. Fucking end up winning. Don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Sorry.
No, you're
End up
fine.
winning. And I was like, the first thing I'd ever won in my life. And I was like, ended up like really getting into cross country, becoming cross country champion, and then using like cross country. And I started competing at 1,500 meters, 3,000 meters for athletics locally as a vehicle to keep me trim. And it worked. It worked until I went to university and discovered women, beer, and pizza.
Right. I mean, interesting. I mean, it's quite a short transition, but quite impactful as well, Tregs, because, I mean, the thing is, life's about relationships. Everything's a relationship with, whether we have a relationship with people, our technology, our phones, and food is a big relationship, as I'm sure you'll maybe talk about later. And it sounds like that relationship with food has transcended from the negative to positive, but you still have a relationship with food and everything that you talk about and everything that you do in relation to fitness. So it's really interesting to hear how solidified that relationship is with food for you from those early days.
I think that, so we'll fast forward on a little bit here. What actually led me into the fitness industry was I became an overweight, frustrated runner. So I've told you my story. I got into cross country. I got into athletics. I was so fit, so healthy, doing 1,500 meters. But then as I got to 16, 17, you start having a few beers with your mates, you're hanging out and la. Go to university, all bets are off. You can eat a takeaway every night. The amount of people I saw balloon in university was incredible. And I did. But all I knew was long distance running, Declan, right? So what I did is I'd go, right, I'm going to run. All I knew is like, if I want to lose weight, I've got to run. So I would wear bin liners underneath my top. Let's go for a run, go for a run, go for a run. And then I got into weight loss pills, all this kind of stuff. And this kind of happened during my 20s. I always had the problem with food. I've always had the problem with kind of overeating. I'd either be on or I'd be off. I'd be on, I'd be off. And that's what led me into the fitness industry. Because I was like, right, I'm into fitness, but I'm overweight. If I fix myself, maybe I can fix others. And that's what led me to become a personal trainer. However, that journey of kind of like trying to fix this didn't fix itself then. It actually got worse. Because when I got into the fitness industry in 2006, 2007, there was a big move into this kind of clean eating, paleo, no carbs, all that jazz. And what happened was I'd gone from 2 years prior driving a van as a self-employed courier after about the nightclub game, sat on my arse all day, to becoming a coach, being on my feet all day, getting into CrossFit, cutting out carbs. And I was like, it must be because I cut out the carbs. Carbs are the enemy. Right, that's it. And I'd go this ultra clean eater. And then every 5 weeks, I'd have a binge and a crash and burn. God, I mean, now's for the weekend, God rest her soul. Eat like 6 bags of crisps, loads of cheese, call it a cheat day, and then move on. Of course, when you're young, free and single and no pressures, no problem. But then when you settle down and you have a couple of kids and you got sleepless nights and there's nappies and your VAT registered, you've got big house and you've got 10 times the outgoing and you're trying to be a clean eater, that shit gets really hard. And circa 2015, my kids are a couple of years old. I jumped ahead, but we can go back.
That's okay.
I was getting astronomical growth in my business, promoting a clean eating message because that was the message from the industry at the time, right? But I was a failed clean eater. I get to Wednesday, have a biscuit and think, I've blown it. I may as well pick up some cans on the way home, get some crisps, get some cheese. And I gained 2 stone as a personal trainer with a very successful growing online business. I mean, I was online early doors, 2011, 2012. And so in 2015, like my boot camps were taking off, online was taking off. This is before Instagram and all that. I felt like a fraud. Yeah. And I remember the boy's mum, my partner at the time, she said to me, you've got very erratic eating habits. And she said, what was one poignant day? Because I felt so trapped. The kids were young. I was overworked. I was tired. We know that tiredness is just a killer, right? Sleep deprivation. And I was just binging. I'd tell myself, oh, it's all right because I'll train tomorrow with client. I'll dial it in, blah, blah, blah. And one day I was at home and my eldest was 2 at the time, and I was going into the cupboard and eating crisps back to back, and he started to copy me. And Sarah said to me, he's copying you, it's time you fix it. And so I had to get CBT therapy, right, Declan?
Yep.
So this was like a big blow to my ego. And I remember researching it for months before I made the call, right? So I was like, I'm Coach Tregs, I'm 30 plus men's fitness. My ego was going, you don't need this. You can just take some pre-workout and train and you're... But I was in a bad place now. I gained 2 stone as a personal trainer, and I was only mid-30s, right? And so I found this therapist who was based in the Bay, and he dealt with addiction, food addiction, drug addiction, sex addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever. So I went to see him. He said, what's the issue? And I said, I'm overeating, I'm binging, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, the problem is with food is that if you're a drug addict, just stay away from drugs. If you're an alcoholic, you stay away from alcohol. If you're a gambler, you stay away from casino. You can't stay away from food. You got to eat it. So that was the first thing. I won't go like massively into detail, but on the first session, he said to me, why do you have to try? I explained what I was going through. He said, why do you have to try and eat so quote unquote clean? Why can't you just have a packet of crisps? I was like, what? What do you mean? That's bad food. He said, it's not. It's a packet. Why can't you just have a chocolate bar? What? Oh no, if I have a chocolate bar, I've got to go and get, a block of cheese on the way home, some bread, some crisps. I'm going big. And he had these very kind of intense silences where he was just sort of planting a seed and going, well, crisps is only 250 calories. Why can't you just have a packet of crisps? And so that first session when I went away, he said, you're going to go away and there is no food off limit. Now you tell somebody who's like, would eat 6 bags of crisps back to back when he's stressed. I was like, whoa, oh, this was a mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd come back and he'd be like, right. He said, you can have 1 packet of crisps a day and 1 chocolate bar. And it was mind blowing, right? But it was at this time, there was an emergence in the industry of flexible dieting whereby you track calories in, track calories out, the wearables like the Garmin's, the Apple Watches.
Yeah.
I started off for the fit, it was all coming about. And there was a new awareness of kind of calories in, calories out. Now, some people might have been more aware of that for longer, right? But at the time, the industry was clean eating, not like very zero carb. And, at one stage, and I was scared to have a fucking chewing gum in case it spiked my insulin. Like, that's the kind of shit, that's where we're at, right? And I was promoting these clean eating plans. And then people were finishing them and they were going on a binge. And they were going, when's the next one, Tregs? I'd fallen off the wagon and all this wasn't sitting right with me, right? So I remember sat there and I was sort of halfway through a couple of months of therapy and I was thinking, right, okay, I'm anti this, but I'm going to download my Fitness Pal and I'm going to try and have a packet of crisps. My favourite packet of crisps, salt and vinegar discos. You won't change my mind. All right. 250 calories, I'll put it in. I'm going to have my favourite chocolate bar, a Boost, 250 calories, I'll put it in. As long as I hit my protein and my calorie targets and I do this amount of steps, and I'm going to see what happens. And lo and behold, I started to get leaner and I didn't want to binge. Great news, right? Okay, so let me see what I like a pint of Guinness. Let me put in a Guinness. 210 calories, yes please, I'll have a couple, right? So hang on, I can have a Guinness. Let me have a look at a fruit pasta lolly. 60 calories for a fruit pasta lolly. I can have a couple. Now, in the past, if I had a fruit pasta lolly, I'd have gone on a 3-day binge.
Yeah.
Right? So my mindset is now, hang on, whoa, this is working. I'm getting lean. I almost wanted to prove it wrong. Now I'm getting lean. Now I'm actually sustaining a healthier eating pattern because I'm not going off on these crazy binges. And I was like, fuck. So it got to 2016, 2017. Kids started to sleep through. I was using this flexible approach. I was having the counseling and I started to get leaner. I started to get back into the shape I was when I got into the industry. But now I've got a very successful online business with men and women promoting clean eating. But I could see what was happening with them. They were doing the plans, coming back to me and going, when's the next one? Almost like Slimming World, this great repeat business, right? It's deemed to fail. So we'd have 21 days, 28 days strict, or we'd throw in cheat days. And then people are like, I can't get back on the wagon after a cheat day. And I was like, yeah, because we were saying, oh, 5,000 calories. This is what the industry is telling us. It'll spike your metabolism. It's all pseudoscience, right?
Yeah.
So I had to come out and go, look, guys, girls, I've been going through my own journey and I only knew what I knew at the time. And now I'm updating my message. So when we do our programs, you can stick to the clean eating if you want, but I knew I had to phase it out. Not as in like, hey, I still want my clients to eat quote unquote healthy food, right? But it's calorie aware. We look at calories and protein and movement. But guys, there's an option if you want to track the calories and the protein. I'm going to show you how to do that. The girls were massively anti it, Declan. They were like, no, you can't tell us to eat chocolate. You can't tell us to do that. It needs to be clean. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not sticking to clean eating, just like I was. So it was a kind of transition. And at that time, I did a podcast and I said, look, I was wrong. Not as in I didn't get you results before. This is why we got you results, because essentially the diet was so restrictive. But now we can get you a result which is more sustainable. And so around 2017, I had that podcast come out. I evolved everything and actually ended up going to the guy after 6 months said, Tregs, you're good, you can go. And I went, no, Stephen, I'm coming back because this investment I'm making every week, which is like, 50 quid an hour, the fucking insights I'm getting from my clients is unbelievable. And then I started to see clients and I was like, look, do you mind if I recommend, I think you might need some CBT? Because it just gave me this whole different way of looking at things. It fucking blew my mind.
I mean, firstly, phenomenal the impact that CBT had on you, because it is about changing thoughts and behaviours, and that's exactly what you've just described, down to a T. Whenever you're talking about the change in thoughts and behaviour around food, around processing, around accepting your behaviour as well, and I think that's some of the stuff that's quite good for people to hear, is that a lot of people, and even to hear you saying, well, no, I'm coming back. I'm not done. I'm just starting. This is just the beginning, because it gets to that point whenever in therapy, people think that you only go to therapy as a reaction to something, as a reaction to something negative, which was what took you there. But the realization then, whenever you were there for kind of 5 or 6 months, that actually no, this is good for me, and it's not just only good for me; it's good for my clients. So this is an investment now that I'm making, not only in me but in my business. That the more I understand me, the more I understand people, which means the more I understand my business and my clientele. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. Mate, 100%. It was some of the best money I ever spent, right? Because, and this is what happened. Like one day, Stephen, the counselor, he said, right, I want you to track back through your life. And I was like, right. And we were deep into the therapy by then. And he said, because for you to track back, he said, anything that sticks out. And I was like, I moved at the age of 10, became lonely. And he said, yeah. And now he said, so that was stressful. You were lonely. You felt out of control. So you use food. And what's now, Tregs? You've got 2 young kids to grow in business. You're tired. You're stressed. And the only way you can control this is by binging and eating. And it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And so the insights were crazy. So this is how disordered, I'm happy to admit that now, my behavior was, because I know this will help people. And I know people be listening and going, yeah, done that. I remember one day, because I was permanently tired, right? Young kids growing a business. Me and my missus were struggling, right? I remember one day, I went to see him in the afternoon. I went in, bags under my eyes, puffy, all that. He said, Tregs, you look shattered. I said, yep, I am. He said, I've fucking had enough. I'm knackered. I'm burnt out. Shit like sleep. Kids are driving me mad. He said, what are you going to do after this? I said, well, I almost didn't come. I said, I'm going to go to the shop and get some cans. I'm going to get some crisps. I'm going to get some fucking bread and cheese. And I go home and smash a lot. And he went, you always do these little pauses. He goes, what are you going to do that for? I'd be like, I just feel like shit. Is that going to make you feel better? And then he'd go, what time are you in tomorrow? I'll be in at 7. What time are you working till? 7. You're going to feel like shit. You treating clients. You sure you want to turn up with a hangover? And what he would do is he'd plant these seeds. He's almost talking me down from the edge, right? He'd plant these seeds where, and I'll come on to this, where I'd walk out and he'd go, what are you going to do? I'll go, I'm going to go home, I'm going to have a healthy meal, And if I have a shit night's sleep, so be it. At least I haven't eaten 3,000 calories and have a hangover, right?
Yeah.
But there's a great book, and I recommend any of your listeners read it. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
And in
Love
that book, it talks about all human behavior is driven by a desire to change your state. I'll say that again. All human behavior is driven by a desire to change your state. The most common thing, right? Me and you could be talking now. I turn my phone off, but it buzzes. I'm talking to you, but I'm thinking, oh, who's messaged me? Is it a client? What is it? Have I got a like on Instagram? Right? So now there's a cue. And now I've got a craving. And I want to satisfy that craving by picking up my phone, checking it, getting a little bit of dopamine, putting my phone back down. It's called Cue-Craving-Response-Reward. Right? But another example, you're on the way to work. You walk past the Greggs. You smell the fucking sausage rolls. Cue. Now you go in, you've got a craving. Response, you buy the sausage roll. Reward, you eat the sausage roll. Now, every time you walk past the Greggs, you associate that with a sausage roll. But is having a sausage roll from Greggs every day conducive to your goals?
Yeah.
Right? So, how do we break free from that habit loop? Is, well, you either make it invisible or you make it unattractive. So let me go into that a little bit more. What Stephen was doing at the time is he was making it unattractive by getting me to think about it. So you're going to coach tomorrow. You're going to get up at 7 a.m. You're probably not going to sleep very well after having 6 packets of crisps, 4 cans, loads of cheese sandwiches, and you're coaching all day. You're going to feel like shit. You see, when you're in that reactive mode, you don't think about that. All you think about is, I'm fucking angry, I'm pissed off, I want whatever it is your vice is. Mine was food, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, the next day, I'm going to feel like a bag of shit. That's why I've ended up seeing the guy, right? James Clear says how to break that is make it unattractive or invisible. So, okay, if I'm walking past Greggs every day and I can't stop going for a sausage roll, maybe I just won't walk past Greggs every day. That's making it invisible. Or you could say, well, yeah, I've had a sausage roll from Greggs 5 days this week, and I don't feel particularly good about myself, and I ain't losing weight. That's making it unattractive.
Yeah.
How we break free is we have to actually think about the next day, the consequences. And unfortunately, Declan, when you actually start to really look at the mind, we are controlled by our animal brain. So this is from a book called Brain Over Binge by Glenn Livingston. Logical, right? So everyone's got a logical brain. So everyone that comes to me for my services logically wants to lose weight, feel better themselves, get results.
Yeah.
But the animal brain is the one that's controlling them. They sign up with me, they're cooking on gas, and then by the weekend, animals going, just cool, do it. And, you know, again, there's a difference between factoring in enjoyment and going out with self-sabotage. And Glenn Livingston says in Never Binge Again, or Brain Over Binge, is imagine that animal brain, it's a pig. He said, I'm sure pigs are lovely, but they squeal. They're going to squeal a lot at the start. They're going to really squeal, but understand that. That pig, it just wants you to sabotage. So what it does, it just wants you to stay as you are. But if you can master that and live in harmony with the pig, Professor Stephen Peters talks about it in the chimp paradox.
Oh, amazing.
It's all the same thing, right? So you live in harmony with it by looking after yourself. You know, you want to make sure you get any sleep. You want to make sure you're hydrated. You want to make sure you're not depriving yourself of anything so it's balanced, because that keeps it happy. And then slowly the pig squeals die away and you're in control. And once you master that, that's where all your dreams are on the other side. Because actually, I always say this to clients, who's frog marching you to the fridge? Who's frog marching you to the pub? Who's telling you to have, 10 pints and then end up in a kebab house, right? You're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Now listen, don't get me wrong, mate. I haven't cracked it at all, but I'm leaner and healthier than I've ever been because I do more of that work. So the mindfulness, and I'll let you jump in, Declan, because it is your podcast, is the key. I always say to people, right? I can give you steps, protein, sleep guidelines, calorie deficit. There's a workout plan. Go off, come back and see me in 6 months, you'll be rich. But it doesn't work like that because we're not robots, we're human. So one of my favorite sayings right now is, you don't have an information problem, you have an implementation problem because you're being governed by a set of habits, and behaviors that you've learned from your environment, or you've picked up as a trauma response, or just developed as the norm over time because of the people that you associate yourself with. So this is why it's so important to talk about this, the brain, because this is, you master this, and then you can master anything.
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, also great tips on some of the books there. You know, the Atomic Habits, Steve Peters, Champ Paradox, great books. I know on Atomic Habits, they talk about habit stacking as well, and taking your time, pacing it, you know, not trying, and that tends to be the difficulty a lot of people who are going through, and I'll speak for myself actually, and not talk about anybody else, but you know, anytime that you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to plan to get fitter or better, you want it all yesterday. And it's understanding that actually, do you know what? It takes time, it takes patience, it takes consistency, and it takes about 6 months to break bad habits. So when you give it the time and space that it needs, you will form the habit, but it takes time. You know, and I think that's the key as well. You're right. It's getting into your own mind, and people don't like being in their own mind. They struggle with it because they don't like what they see. You know, they look in the mirror, they look at who they are or who they were. Nine times out of 10, none of us, we will all find fault in ourselves, particularly physically. But when we can understand the mind and the brain and how it works, we can then start to control it. It's like that chimp on the leash, you know, when Steve Peters talks about it. So, and I think that's really, really important points that you're making, Tregs. And I'm glad that you were happy to share about your own journey around your mental health and CBT as well.
Just want to touch a little bit more on that, what you said, because it's so important. And I think it's harder than ever, because I say we live in an Amazon Prime world where if we want something, we can get it now, right? And have it tomorrow. So, for example, my Garmin charger broke a couple of weeks back. Like, I live and die by my Garmin. It's always on because I'm a stats whore as a personal trainer. I was like, I've got 16% left. My things, it won't work. It'd been playing it for days. Amazon Prime, bang, there in the morning. Done, fixed. Problem solved. Easy. I need some new swim shoes because mine have got a hole in. Bang. Don't have to do anything. All my details, my address. One click payment is there. Right? And that's what people want with their fitness. I've been good all week. Why have I lost a stone? It doesn't work like that. And the problem is, right? People want it now, right? And James Clear says in Atomic Habits, the slow pace of transformation makes good habits easy to slide. So the first three things I'd always say to a client is fix your sleep, easier said than done. 10,000 steps a day as a ballpark, 2 to 3 liters of water a day. Do that every day for a month and see your life change. Most people wouldn't even do it for a few days and they'd be like, I can't see any point in there. Right? I get it. But it's the compound interest over time of doing those things. And I say this, right? It's not meant to be sexy. It's the boring stuff that gets you sexy, right? And this is just how it is, right? I've got a group coaching program called the Inner Circle, which is fantastic. And we do all the mindset coaching. I always say the coaching's in the conversation. So we do 2 calls a week and we just sit and we chat. And even if they don't get it from me, they might get an insight through another client and their journey and they get a little breakthrough, right? And it is such a hard sell for me to promote that. Like, come and join my group coaching. We focus on mindset, consistency, habit stacking, right? If I slap up, I got a 90-day challenge, you're going to lose 20 pounds. People are chucking money at me. Yeah. Because it's like, 90 days, I lose 20 pounds, right? That sells. And obviously, once they're in my world, my ethics are the same. I'm giving them the same service. But from split testing these things, I know, right, advertise the result, advertise the time limit, Tregs, and then get to work on them in the group on that, because you're not going to sell them on mindset alone. It's fucking boring to that until they realize and they get in there and they're like, okay, like the biggest changes I've seen in my life is from changing the way I think. Like, and I spoke about this on my stories the other day. My mum handed me a book just as I was retraining to be a personal trainer in 2006, 2007. Actually, the audio called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, because I'd struggled with mental health in my 20s. She handed me this book about law of attraction. I was very down at the time, very depressed. And I put these CDs on in my van. I was a self-employed courier at the time. I hated it. I was overweight. I was angry. And it started with all these spiritual chimes. You can imagine what I did for me. I just went, what the fuck is that shit? And chucked it. And then 2 weeks later, I'm still overweight. I'm still angry. I'm still pissed off with life. I'm still driving around in my van, getting road rage, listening to the news, telling me how shit life is. I thought, right, what have I got to lose? Put it back in, get past the spiritual chimes. Just give me something practical, because I ain't spiritual. Now I am, but I wasn't then. And it was like, try and show gratitude every day. Rather than focus on lack, focus on what you've got. Appreciation. Go and appreciate someone. Focus on gratitude, appreciate, give thanks. I was like, I can do that. It's a bit weird because nobody's ever taught me to think like this.
Yeah.
But I can do that. Started to do gratitude. Started to feel my energy improve. Started to show appreciation anytime I stopped off to bought a coffee. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rather than think my van's going to break down today. My van isn't going to break down today. And if it does, I'm going to handle it. And started to do this self-talk. Shit, this shit works. What's next? Realization. Let's start visualizing things. Holy crap, my life changed forever. But you know the thing? Nobody had ever taught me to think that way until I picked up that book. And this is the thing. We are conditioned to think in a certain way. Our brain just wants to keep us safe. Our brain wants to keep us in this kind of familiar hell. For some people, they know they want to change, but where they're at is familiar. And on the other side of change is that unfamiliar heaven where we form this new identity, but it's going to be painful getting there. It's painful to stay here, but it's painful to go there. But it's understanding that it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I say to clients, I can give you the numbers, I can give you the black and white stuff, but unless we actually use this, we're never going to make any progress.
And it's about progress, and it's about taking time to actually accept who you are and where you are in the moment as well. Gratitude is huge. And it's very much that you get back what you put out. I'm a firm believer in that. What you get back, what you put out. If you put out kindness, you get kindness back. You smile at somebody, instinctively they're going to smile back at you because it's reciprocal, right? We're tribal. We're built to communicate that way. So all these things, I mean, we've sadly not evolved that much in 2,000 years. So we have to accept the fact that when you go back to basics, it works. We're built to socialise. We're built to be integrated. We're not built to be in the world that we live in at the moment, which is isolating, self-indulgent, all of this kind of stuff where we're working on how can we be the best version of ourselves without including anybody else. All of these things. So when you're thinking about that stuff and the stuff that you're talking about, and you talked about that, the dopamine injections from social media and all the damaging stuff that we do as well. When we start to introduce these things into our lives and become more self-aware, and self-awareness is key. That's a lot of stuff that I talk with clients about in therapy and like doing CBT. With self-awareness and understanding yourself, that's when the changes happen, right? And there's a saying I'll say to a lot of clients: if nothing changes, nothing changes.
One of my favourite quotes too. What you said then, awareness. That is massive, right? So, and I talk about this, I know it's a mental health podcast, but I'm talking about fitness. So this is what I see, right? People will start something. They're up for it. They're motivated. They're going to do it. A good couple of days under the belt, they get to the weekend or whatever, they fuck it up. Then they sit and binge all weekend and they go, right, what am I going to try next week? What am I going to try? Try that. And then it's the same thing, right? Hang on a second. Why did you fail? And this is why I do my group coaching on the Sunday, a big call on the Sunday. We call it accountability hour, where everyone talks about how the week went, right? And what happened.
Yeah.
Because like I said to a client this morning when I was walking, I never have to wake up on a Monday and go, what am I doing this week in terms of my training and nutrition? It doesn't change. I've created a framework for myself, which allows me a couple of drinks on a weekend, which allows me my dad's 2,000 calorie roast, which allows me to go out and take my new girlfriend out for a meal and a drink by having a set of guidelines where I do this amount of steps. These are my training days. I run on this day. I intermittent fast this day. I don't have to cut anything out. If I want to go into the petrol station, fill up my car, and they got salt and vinegar discos, I'm having them. And it doesn't lead on to, I don't end up going home and like sniffing bags of crackers or anything like that, right? I can do it and move on. That's self-liberating. And I'm aware. I'm aware also of my dangers. So I can deal with stress without sabotage. Like, I don't get stressed and go down to the pub. I'll tell you some of my coping mechanisms. And I can deal with shit going on in my life without having to go off piste. If I'm tired, in fact, now I like to run at quite high energy, and that's why I make sleep a priority. However, one day a week, I'll get really tired because I have someone with ADHD, in case you haven't realized that. I don't know, I only know one gear, and that's go. So if I have a gap in my day, I'm thinking, what can I do? Can I do a video? Can I train? Can I do what? I can't just be, which is really hard. And that's why meditation has been a game changer for me. What happens is I get tired. And when I get tired, I overconsume.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of that. As I say to clients, I'm aware of my problems. And it's a fucking battle. But guess what? I'm aware of it. Tiredness is my problem. I get tired because I push too hard. I know I should do less, but I've got ADHD, and that's the fucking battle. So my issue is when I get tired, I sabotage. So what happened to you, Dave, last week? Why did you fail that diet? Why did you crash and burn on the weekend? What was it? Let's look at that. You had a long day at work. Oh, you cut out all carbs, and then you fucking was like dizzy and thought, I need food, and end up eating 6 cakes. Let's look, let's reflect. Okay, so maybe that's not for you. You know, I set my alarm and did the gym at 5, every day at 5 last week, and I felt fuck by Friday. Okay, so maybe less alarms. I don't know, but without awareness, without reflection, you're just caught up in that actual cycle. And so it is so key. Awareness and reflection is so key.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that you learn in therapy. As you go through it, you start to understand that self-awareness and reflection is paramount in your therapy and your therapeutic journey. People think that they come to therapy and they're going to get fixed by the therapist. They don't realize that the work that's been done in the room is by the person in the room. The person that is there, they're going away and doing the homework and doing the stuff. And when they come back and they go, oh my God, thank you so much. You really helped me. Well, it didn't really do anything. You talk about Stephen there, and you were talking about, oh, well, he said this back to me. He basically told you what you just said, but he allowed you to hear it from someone else's voice so that you could go, well, actually, that's crazy. Why would I do that? Why am I doing this? But when you hear it back, you kind of hear, actually, is that what I'm actually saying? Am I going to go home and, not sleep very well, train for 7 or work for 12 hours tomorrow? So it's important, that process and self-awareness.
One thing you said there was really interesting, because I actually sent a client to therapy. I noticed some erratic behaviors in her. We laugh about it because she said that when she got there, she went on the first session, right, how many sessions do I need? When am I going to be fixed? And again, we had a laugh about it, and she was aware, but it's like, it comes back to that, right, when do I get a result? All right, so if I spend this, I'm thinking, it doesn't work like that. You've got to do the work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's hilarious. Again, it shows us how we live in this. We want everything now. Instant gratification. Fix me. If I chuck some money at it, is it fixed?
Yeah. And exactly the same as the fitness industry. The mental health industry is exactly the same. If I come to you for 6 sessions, will I be fixed? Thinking about the fact that you're coming here at the age of 45 and you've never been for therapy before. We're unpicking 45 years here. Do you think that's going to be done in 6 50-minute sessions? I mean, I'm not a magician, so it's understanding that. I'm getting clients to understand it as well, and I imagine you have that from your industry. And you talked to, you mentioned there earlier, so I'm going to go back a wee bit because you mentioned your friend, and I know that some of the things that you've been through in your life. You talked about your 20s and having challenges and getting the secret CD and chucking it out the window. But you came over that and you started to become more self-aware and spiritual, and as you went into your 30s, then you started to kind of set things up in business. But you mentioned your friends. Just tell me a wee bit what you meant there about your friend and the difficulty there.
Well, Mark Ramskill, he came into my life in 2008, 2009. He came as a client, and I remember he was a very nervous, kind of tall, gangly guy. I always joke about the gym I used to work in. We were up the stairs and we could see out the window. I remember his first session. I remember him pacing the car park. I was training clients. I think, oh, this must be him. He just pacing the car park, looking really nervous. And when he came in, I could tell he had anxiety. But we just hit it off. He'd moved to Cardiff from I'd moved from West Country, so but we hit it off. Same humour, same interest in music, and he lived in the Bay. We became really, really good friends. And basically, when I had the idea of setting up a boot camp for over 30s men and then going online, like we're talking, pre-2010, he was like, dude, I work in like media marketing. I was like, what's that? I think he was like, I can help you. I can help you create a blog. I'm going to help you create a funnel. I'm like, this is all alien to me. We'll set up a YouTube channel. We'll just put content out there. We'll get an email list built. I was like, dude, what do I need to do? He said, just turn up and be yourself. Just turn up, we'll film you and blah, blah, blah. So we ended up having an arrangement whereby I would train him for free and we'd record content and he'd set up my blog and my website and all this kind of stuff. Right. And we'd just go for a pint and he'd say to me, Tregs, he said, you've got it, mate. He said, I can see you helping so many people. He said, you've got the personality. You need to be out there. I can see you out there. Just be yourself and let's create, the magic. I'd actually moved into the same apartment block as him and I was dating someone and it kind of ended really nastily. And I remember like telling him, just split up with this girl and blah, blah. And I remember coming home that day and he was waiting for me, give me a big hug. I couldn't fucking believe it. He had feelings. And we ended up going for a few pints and I never forget, like, I was really down because, like, this partner cheated on me and I was just, like, really embarrassed, really upset. And I was like, dude, like, I was fucking crying into my pint. I was like, dude, what am I going to do? And I never forget, he looked at me and went, listen, get your head down, get back to work, train your clients, do what you do best, and keep trucking. And, like, I'd heard that before, like, keep on trucking. But the way he said it, like, it still puts a shiver up my spine. He just said, keep trucking. I still remember him saying it. And that's what I did. I went back to work, got my head down and carried on, come out stronger the other end. And we had this big grandiose plan to take 30 plus men's fitness online. And, it was all helping with all the back office stuff. And it was growing, really growing. And he was brilliant. But I knew he had anxiety. I knew he had dark thoughts. And I knew he struggled sometimes. I didn't know the extent. And he turned to me just as things were starting to take off. And he's like, look, Tregs, I'm going to move away. I'm going to move away and live with my girlfriend. He'd been seeing this girl. I'm going to move to York. But I'm still going to do all your stuff. I'm gutted. But I'd met my partner, Sarah, or his mum, and she was pregnant with our first son, John. And I was about to go away to Thailand to this advertised super camp by a guy called Dax Moy, who's a fitness professional, still good friends with Dax now online. And it was like, basically, you come to Thailand, you live in luxury for 10 days, and you work on your first online program, and then we help you launch it. And Mark had left, he'd gone to live up in York, but we're still in contact. And I got to Thailand, you got to understand now, like, I just left my girlfriend, she's pregnant with John. I've flown all the way across the world to meet these fitness professionals, and my phone kept ringing, and it was one of my friends, Steve Robson, who'd invited him along, who they knew each other. And he's messaging me, and I'm like, dude, like, I thought it was about his boot camp fees. I said, I'll speak to him about it. He's like, no, I need to talk to you. And he rang me, and he's like, look, I've got some bad news. He said, Mark has taken his own life. And I was just like, fucking jet lagged in Thailand, partner pregnant with my first son. And I remember just like, I couldn't fathom it. He's like, yeah, he's jumped in front of a train. And turned out that he'd gone up to live in York. He was really struggling, settling down, and he'd had a bust up with his girlfriend one morning, and he suggested he was going to leave. They had words. She suggested, like, oh, go on then, leave me, just like my dad did. And she'd gone to work, and he basically got up, and 20 minutes later, he put himself in front of a train. And it was just fucking unbelievable. And I remember just going out and saying to the people there, like, listen, this has happened. Count me out. And I just went in my room. I remember speaking to Sarah and I was like, what am I going to do? Do I come home? People were messaging me because it was out on socials and people said, no, Tregs, just stay there. We want you to stay there and do this. So I was jet lagged. I was all over the gap, but I just literally stayed in my room for 24 hours. Had some sleep. And I remember getting up. I was thinking, right, I'm going to go for a run. And I went and I ran along this beach in Thailand. Just a pair of shorts, pair of trousers, incredible store. heavens open, there was lightning, and I stood there, and it felt like he was talking to me, and I was like, right, no, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to complete this. So I stayed out there, and I filmed all this content. I created my first online product. When I come back, I remember it was all kind of good to go. Without Mark, I didn't really have anyone. And I was moving into this house, and Sarah was pregnant. And I was literally really close to being off the idea of 30 plus men's fitness. I mean, I had a successful boot camp. My PT was busy. I was doing well. There was something inside of me that was saying, well, you know, if you don't see this through, you know, you've got a good excuse. It's like, you know, people say, what happened to 30 plus men's fitness track? Oh, what it was, my friend topped himself and couldn't carry on without him. People are going to go, oh, I understand that, right? But there was something in me. But I still was too scared to put it out there. Anyway, my son was born, John, and he had a traumatic birth and he was kept into ICU. And once he was stabilised, I remember going home and thinking, I've not emailed my list in ages. Nobody's probably paying any attention, but let me send out an email. And it's like, hey, I'm a dad, and I'm sorry I've not been in touch. As you know, Mark passed away. And I remember getting emails back going, Tregs, good to hear from you. Keep going. You know, your son needs you now. You've got a family, and Mark will be proud. And I just had a few emails back, and I couldn't even tell you who they're from. It was over 10 years ago, and I went, right, let's fucking go. Let's bring this to life. And I remember having a contact with a guy called Carl, who Mark had recommended do us some graphics. Got in touch with him. I was like, dude, do you know your way around WordPress, this, that? And he's like, yeah. And we took 30 plus men's fitness to life and got it out there. And I just had this goal of like, let's just get out there online. Let's just help as many people as possible. Because had Mark had an online community, he could have spoken. That might have given him a bit more. At the time, it was just like, we meet in person a couple of times a week. But my goal was to create this online platform that people would feel secure and would be able to share how they're feeling. And that's when I then went on to set up my boot camps around the country and set up my free community, grow my list. And I've always tried to keep that message. And I always used to sign off with keep trucking. Now I sign off a lot of the time with keep on moving, because that was the name of my first book. And that's the story of Mark.
Wow. And I mean, it sounds like Mark vicariously lives on through 30 plus, because I mean, he was the part of the driving force in relation to the content and getting it out online and that type of push. But also, what I'm hearing you say is also that the thought behind the online and the open community, because it's not very often you see that in fitness, is that open net wide community, and it's free to engage and all this kind of stuff. There's usually a subscription. But what you're saying there is bringing back that instinct of let's be a community again. Let's support each other when we need it. Let's talk to each other when we need it. It's not all going to be about fitness. It's about, where are we at? Are we struggling? And that's okay.
That's it. Yeah. And, he believed in me, and it was just we only knew each other a couple of years, but it was just I look back and I smile, because we just, you just meant to meet people. And he was there, and he cared, and he helped me get it up and running. So that's why I'll always be doing this, my friend.
What do you think Mark would think now, seeing 30 plus where it is? And
I think he'd be buzzing, but I think he'd also be saying to me to keep going, keep driving it forward, keep trying to help as many people. Because, we've had suicide since in the community. We have people pass away. This is life. And so the job isn't done. And I think that for me, as I move forward, so you're a therapist, I'm a personal trainer. I say to clients, when they come into the gym or when they join one of my programs, they're not sat down discussing their problems, they're actually moving their body. It's like double bubble, because they're getting the endorphins from the movement and they're talking. I believe what we do is so valuable. So my job is to get people moving and get people talking and get them feeling good. So I've seen clients, right, that can come into the gym in tears and go away smiling. And I know that, right? And like being self-employed all my life, I've had some times where I'm like, but turn my phone off for an hour, train, come back and go, okay, yeah, I'm in my overdraft. That's fine. We'll do this and we'll be all right. Because it changes your state and it gives you that release. It's most people are so caught up in their own head, they don't realize that everyone's going around with their own problems as well. It's how we can deal with them? What tools have we got to be able to deal with them?
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing. I think it's really important what you're saying there about that community part and people coming in feeling the way they're feeling. I mean, one, fair play to them for walking in the door feeling the way they're feeling, but the opportunity to do the work physically, and that's why stuff like walk and talk therapy is becoming more popular as well. You get to be active, you're getting out into nature, and you're talking. You know, I'm wondering, just whenever you were talking there, and it wasn't something that I've thought about until now, till we're talking. Do you think it would be beneficial for personal trainers or coaches and things to be trained more in mental health and being able to talk to people around their mental health and signs and symptoms of suicide? Because I know for me, I'm an assist trainer, so I train people on suicide intervention and how to kind of speak to somebody while they're in crisis. Just hearing you, I'm thinking there's phenomenal opportunities there, I think.
I mean, you know, I'm not qualified, but I've done enough reading and learning to understand that how important it is. So important. And like CBT just gave me such a different outlook on things. And you know, the whole shift now with the mindfulness. So I'll talk about that. It's so important. And I think the two go hand in hand, really.
Well, they do. It goes back to that mind, body, and soul, doesn't it? You know, that it's that trilogy that needs to exist, and one can't exist without the other. You know, if you're feeling mentally unwell, you're physically going to be unwell as well, and it can actually manifest itself. Your body will tell you that you're mentally unwell because it will ask you to shut down, you know, and spirituality as well.
Dude, it's like when I had depression in my late 20s, it's like, you know, when people say, and I go, right, okay, I'm not knocking anyone with depression. People say they feel a bit down or this, that, and the other, and it should not be taken lightly. Depression is a physical thing. Let me describe my depression. I would sleep for 10 hours a night and wake up tearful and exhausted. That's what depression can do to you, right? And that's what I had in my late 20s, just as I was about to transfer into the fitness industry. And I believe that was a combination of stuff from childhood. I was a nightclub promoter for many years, so I partied hard, put my hands up. I'm very open book about that. That probably caught up with me. And just, like being lost in my mid to late 20s before I found my calling. Once I found my calling, I was good. But depression was like, I remember the first time, like, waking up on the sofa thinking, or on my bed, 9 hours sleep. Why am I so tired? Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Next day, same again. And then the third day, tearful with it. I'm thinking, this is fucking... And I remember going to the doctors and they're like, yeah, I think you're depressed. And the anxiety had sort of come first. Being on my edge all the time, not wanting to go out, this, that, and the other, and then that led to depression, and I had to go on meds, you know, for a while. And they did help me, you know, they really helped me for the first part of the decade. I slowly reduced. And then, you know, giving myself properly to health and fitness was the answer, really, you know.
What a journey you've been on. You know, you've talked about your childhood, you've talked about the difficulties in childhood, but also the kind of turbulent times in relation to going to uni, weight control, management, going to CBT, managing all those kind of thoughts, feelings and emotions. And then obviously you talked about 30 plus there and the impact Mark had on not only on your life.
Thank you.
From a business mind point of view, is it purely that the drive is to help men? Where does it come from? Why men?
Great. Well, first off, I mean, I train men and women, and I have got women's programs and all that kind of stuff. And I had a ladies only group for 10 years. But I set up 30 plus because at the time I'd become very busy as a personal trainer early on. I got very busy, probably because I'm like a person of all and I'm a people's person. I was just ended up doing 50 hours a week PT. I was burnt out. I was knackered, and I was thinking I need to work smarter. And I started to, when I'd ever go down to my nan's and take a break, I started to research these like fitness bloggers in the States. So they were talking about do a boot camp, you can train more people, work less hours, charge less. There was also another person I was listening to. He was like, become a niche master, like really niche down. Like, who is it that you want to work with? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I just like spent days, time like trying to research it. And I thought, oh, I'm 31. I've been in the industry a few years. I'm fitter than ever. I'm healthier than ever. I wonder how many guys out there feeling like their best days are behind them. And so that's where I came up with it, because it's like my mentors have said to me, like fitness is fitness, a push-up is a push-up, but it's the language you talk, right? And how you market it. So I set up 30 plus men's fitness because I wanted to create a space where it's safe for men who felt like their best days are behind them. I mean, I look back now and I'm like, I'm 45 and I feel better than ever. But I do get it. Because I felt like a bag of shit in my 20s, right?
Yeah.
Who can come along and feel safe and feel part of it. Everyone's at the same age. They're going to have been through quite a bit in life, and everyone feels welcome, whether you're a doctor, whether you're an office worker, whatever it is. Everyone was made to feel safe, and it did. It just creates such a sense of community. But yeah, I've not shut off any other. I've got ladies programs, and I've mixed works. I've got a mixed boot camp and that. But it was just that as a 31-year-old guy myself, I felt like I could really connect with the over 30s man. And funny enough, like once my kids come along and life got stressful and life got more tiring, my emails would hit better with these guys. So they're like, yeah, we understand you now, Tregs. You're tired like us. So that's why. Yeah.
And do you know what I hear there is that genuineness, and people will see through the crap. If you're giving them a sales pitch and you're giving that, that initial part that you probably started the business with, your drive was to just, create, develop, grow. But when you're being genuine and honest, and you're being vulnerable as well, to the point where you're kind of going, actually, do you know what, guys, I'm shattered. I've got a baby. I'm not sleeping. I'm probably not eating properly. I'm pretty drained. I'm with you, but let's do it together. And that's what I'm hearing. It's that community aspect again.
I think I've always been very open on my stories. Somebody said to me recently, you do a lot of stories, don't you? And I'm like, look, one thing I've learned in fitness and marketing is people buy from people. So there is a method in me doing those stories, like don't get it twisted. But I remember Craig Ballantyne, one of the earliest fitness marketers I followed, at a thing called Turbulence Training. He was like, people love to see kids and animals. Like, talk about your life. And he had a dog, Bally the dog. I remember he talked about his emails. Yeah, I get this guy. He's a guy, he's got abs, he's got a dog, and he goes for walks in the forest. So you will see all of my life. I put all of my life on my stories, and I get all of my business through Instagram stories and Facebook with minimal advertising. If I do advertising, then great. However, I enjoy doing that. Like, understand that if you're an online fitness coach, influencer, whatever it is, like, you have to be, you're getting left behind if you're not using social media. But I'm not fake on social media, and we'll sort of round up with kind of this. So I will say to people, look, I've been out running, I've got a hamstring strain, and I'll put my times up, I'll be like, I'm a bit stumped. People go, oh God, Tregs, I wish I could run as fast as that. I'm like, look, when it comes to running, it's you against you. This is a slow time for me. I'm not going to lie. I can be quicker. But I say, look, when I'm out there, I'll tell you. If I'm having a great run and I'm playing air guitar, you'll know about it. If I'm having a shit run and my hamstring's playing up, you'll know about it. I'm going to give you the warts and all, because people like to get to know you. And so I know we were going to talk about this, and I think this is probably a really good one to close out on. But I went through a separation, very, very amicable, over the last 18 months with the boy's mum, Sarah. The really interesting thing was, in October 2022, I tried cold water therapy for the first time, having lived in the Vale of Glamorgan for over 10 years and never done it. You'll see where this is going. And I had clients that spoke about it, and I was like, that looks cool, great, not for me. But I don't like the ice enemas at the Tough Mudder events and stuff like that. So I knew what it was like to get cold water. And actually, at Europe's Toughest Mudder, I was in it 5 times and kind of adjusted to it. And in 2022, on my birthday, my 44th birthday, me and Sarah meant to go out some food, but she was feeling well. The kids are at school. I think, well, the kids are at school. Let me go and try this cold water therapy. And I believe the universe was taking me there that day to say, Tregs, there's going to be some upheaval in your life, and this is going to help you. And I actually went in because I just started running again. My Achilles was playing up. My knees were playing up. I was feeling old. And I remember getting in. I remember staying in there for like 10, 15 minutes. It was about 17 degrees up there. It was fine. I remember walking back to the car. I thought, good here. Next day, got in again. Boom. I'm feeling good. Whoa, this is good. Then I went on a breathwork course, and a course where we did like ice baths up in the Wirral, learned how to regulate breathing, looked at meditation, and I just cracked on, and I got so into it. I was going in November, December, like 2 degrees, 3 degrees, I'm really mastering it. And I just cannot believe how much it changed my mind, but it also quieted my mind. Achilles tendonitis wet, knee problem wet, recovery, boom, endorphin, boom. And then in December 2022, Sarah and I discussed separating, which was a difficult conversation. And in the past, I'd always been very much like, my kids. I was one of the nuclear family, but I knew they were at an age where the bond was so strong with them, and Sarah would never let me not see them, and I do their football coach, and I'm always with them, that actually I didn't feel I would lose them. I've been getting so into the mindfulness and the cold water and the meditation that after a couple of days of anxiety, because knowing that you're going to break up is easy, I sat to myself and I thought, right, okay, you can go, look, why is this happening to me? Life's so unfair. Oh, I've been a good partner. I provide. Or you can go, okay, what am I learning from this? What is this teaching me? How can I come out of this a better version of myself? You can go down the dating app, the boozing, the eating sugar, the getting mad, all that shit, getting emotional. Or you can go meditation, cold water, spirituality, running in nature, focusing on the positives. And let me tell you, Steph, and this is not to impress anyone, to impress upon you. I had two paths I could go down. And I sat quietly and I got in the cold water in -1 and I controlled my breathing. And I just tapped into a higher power of the universe. And I just, on some of my hardest days, I said, thank you. I was in the cold water. I was doing meditation. And I said, thank you. Thank you, the universe, for presenting me with these challenges. And thank you for letting me help them and navigate them as a healthy, happy dad. And thank you that I can get through this amicably. Thank you that everything works out okay. I'm excited about the future. And I went deep into that. Sarah and I actually ended up living together for the subsequent 10 months because I bought a house opposite and I was waiting for it to be built. And so we're all living under the same roof, which actually was fine because we hadn't really been connected in that way for years. So nothing had changed. We explained to the boys. We handled it really well. We said that Mummy and Daddy are just going to be friends and that, one of us is going to move out. We're not going to be too far away. And when you hear the word separation, normally that can mean that the parents don't like each other, but Mummy and Daddy are just friends. They don't want to be together in that way anymore. And they were just like, so we're going to have two houses? Yeah. But we have a PS5 in each house? Yeah. That's all they wanted to know. They've been great, right?
Brilliant.
There were times where it got tough. You're sorting out the finances. Words do get heated.
Yeah.
People are hurt. People are emotional. And I remember there were times I went down to the sea in tears, not because of my ex-partner being nasty to me, because she's the mother of my kids and we are great friends, but because it was fucking overwhelming. But I could have chose the cold one of the pub and got angry and got, shouting like, and I went to the sea and I found so much happiness and solace there. And then I got into meditation. And then I realized, even as hyper as I am, I could sit quietly for 15 minutes. I could sit quietly for 30 minutes. I could sit quietly for 45 minutes and I would breathe and I would cry and I would let it out. And I would be like, I've never felt so fucking good in all my life. And then I'd be going down to the sea going, thank you, universe. Thank you for these challenges. Thank you for letting me grow stronger. Thank you for letting me overcome this. I tapped into a different mindset. But in order to tap into that different mindset, I had to make sure my exercise was on point. I was getting good night's sleep. I was consuming mindfulness. I was scripted. I was being grateful. I almost made that side of things like a full-time job to get me through it. And I came through it. This isn't some fucking fairy tale ending, but everything has worked out really well. And Sarah and I are 50-50 with the boys. We live 90 seconds apart, so if I'm low on pants or socks, one of us can call round. My dad, who is retired and lived with us, now lives with me. He's happy and got dogs. I do give myself a pat on the back because I thought, fuck, I got through that. A lot of people may have thought I wouldn't have got through it like that. And not just that, but whilst running a business. Recently, somebody said to me, Tregs, what's your current goal in life? And I just blurted out to be a healthy, happy dad. Now, years ago, I would have said to have 10 boot camps, to have this amount of money every month. I've earned huge money some months, and I've been tired, burnt out, and fucking hating life. I've set up my life now where I still want to earn good money, but I've got a balance. I get in the sea every morning, non-negotiable. Go running in nature. Do my quiet time. I do my scripting. I am so grateful, Declan, for the way it's worked out. But it was a process.
Yeah.
It was going to be hard anyway, so I can choose which hard. You know, it's going to be hard. Let's focus on this. And this is not to impress anyone, because years ago in my 20s, if that had happened, I would have gone down the pub. I would have gone and got some, you know, whatever in and, you know, got up to mischief, right? I just went, no,
Yeah.
let's go here. This is an opportunity to go real deep into the mindfulness. Everything you tell clients, Tregs, now's your time. And it's been, honestly, it's been so enlightening, buddy. And that choice is there for anyone. Anyone can tap into that. There is so much free resources online to help you with mindfulness, because you get a choice. People go, oh, well, you know, I've gone for a step, allow me to let me have my 10 pints. But look, you're still going to wake up with problems, right? So you got to have 10 pints and you're going for a breakup. Wake up, you've got a hangover and you're going for a breakup. If I go and meditate, quieten my mind, I wake up, I'm still going for a breakup, but I've meditated and I've quietened my mind. So these are all choices.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, because, I mean, this sounds like, again, a massive piece of your journey to understand yourself and have that quiet time in the water and cold water therapy, meditation. A lot of it's surrounding time, you know, time and space. And I think that's one of the things probably. I mean, I was going to ask you what were some of the coping strategies that you do use, and you've just told me a lot of the things that you do that works for you. And I think, you know, one of the messages that you've said there, and I would echo, is that, you know, everybody's different in how they cope and how they manage things. So cold water might not be for everybody, but if it's for you, go for it. If, you know, find your thing, but it's important that you find it and don't just sit and take in that negative energy and, you know, let it consume you. I think it's important that, you know, doing the stuff that you're doing and talking about, and it doesn't come at a certain point in your life with, you know, huge enlightenment. It comes with trying it, testing it. Does it work? Do I have to push through this barrier to then feel that kind of connection to yourself? You know?
Dude, people think that spirituality is all fluffy and all this kind of stuff. I've had some of my most tearful moments in meditation and silence, because you've got to tap into what the fuck's going on. I learned so much. I've healed so much. But most people are just, they don't even sit quietly for 5 minutes, and then they're carrying that trauma around. They're not unpacking it. And it's just manifested in their behaviors. And they go, oh, look for something else, look for something else. No, sit. Jordan Peterson says, sit quietly at the end of your bed for 15 minutes every night, and you'll get answers. People go, I can't switch off. Well, okay. So you've been awake for like 10 hours, you've been to work, you listen to the radio, you fed the kids, you put them to bed, and you're worried that you can't switch off in 90 seconds, so you fucking sack it off. How disrespectful. Like, your mind is meant to be racing. This is why we're sitting quietly. Give it 15 minutes, and you will, trust me, you will start to decompress. And it's okay for the mind to race. It's okay that you can't relax initially. If I can do it, and I think you've seen sort of energy I have over the last hour or so, then you can do it. And it's only, you know, it's only when you really quieten the mind. And people might say, I haven't got time for that. Okay, then, fine. But that is a tool. You know, I can't be grateful when the shit's hitting the fan. Guess what? Everyone's got problems. This is one of the great things about being a therapist or a PT. You realize that everyone's got problems. I'm so grateful I meet people every day and share their problems with me, because I'm like, shit, I'm not the only one. This is life. And I think there's a great quote, isn't there? Like, whoever told you life was easy, it's just a liar. Like, life is meant to be a challenge, and it's how we navigate through those challenges. And if you incorporate mindfulness, you try and be grateful. You come out of that kind of like, why is this happening to me? Like, okay, what am I learning for this? Hey, it's difficult, but it is a choice.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think it is a choice. It's, I mean, to say that you've not 15 minutes, I mean, that's concerning for a start, you know, for people who can't. And a lot of it, I feel, is it's responsive to digital devices. You know, that, you know, you see people kind of picking their phone up, checking to see if it's not buzzed, it's not pinged, yet they feel this instant need to keep checking their phone, or if there's an advert. Not that most things are streamed now, you know, finding time to tap into something. But that urge is to try and connect. The difficulty is that they're trying to connect with other people, really, when they should be connecting with themselves.
We're all digitally distracted. And one thing, I mean, not everyone can do this, but I really started to research perfect nighttime routine. I mean, I'm big into like my nighttime tea, my meditation. But the morning routine as well. What's the first thing we do? We check our phone, right? And we scroll. Hey, guilty of it. I'm lucky, right? So I'm very lucky. I live by the sea. So when I check my phone, the first thing I do is check the time. And like literally, I'll wake up, and if the tide is good, and it pretty much is, because I can go to 2 different places, right? It's like, boom, get my shorts on, get my swim and gone. And because I want to get that sunlight and I want to get that cold water.
Yeah.
And I've done the contrary. I've lay in bed and got, I can't be out this morning, and scrolled for 20 minutes. And when I get up, I'm like, because it's already sucking that life out of you. You need to go and get that morning sunlight, get that natural light, get that changing state. Because there's all these tools at our disposal that can set us up for a better day.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. And there's one thing I wanted to touch on just before because we're going to come to an end, but and I'm conscious of your time. But one thing I wanted to ask you specifically was around your opinion around what some of the misconceptions are about men's mental health that they encounter through the work that you do on the 30 plus men's fitness. Is there any misconceptions that you feel that exist for the men that you work with specifically?
I think that I can be guilty of this. Sometimes we feel that it's all on us, and it shows vulnerability to admit that you're struggling a little bit because it's not masculine. And I know we're encouraged to talk way more these days, but, guys still believe or still think it's all on them. And I know that, like, running a couple of businesses, there'll be days where I'm like, okay, fuck, I would never let anyone know. I'm dealing with that internally. I'm dealing with that with my own, right, okay, all right, that needs attention. But I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm going to keep it to myself, keep a smile on my face, and do the work so that I can navigate through this. And that works. So I think there's a lot of people that just feel that they've got nowhere to turn, and that it's showing a weakness. And it's not weak. It's actually great to open up.
And there's still that, although men are getting much better at it, there's still the misconception that men need to be strong and they need to put up with it and they need to struggle on. It's a weakness and vulnerability. And I think it's important the work that you're doing when you're talking about connecting with people during training, and the honesty and the genuineness that you show through the work that you do transcends then into the people that you will work with. So I'm thankful for the work that you do, and hearing the content that you put out. It's really helpful to me personally.
Loved it. I'm really grateful that you give me a platform. Like I always say, I could just sit and talk about health, fitness, spirituality all day. It's not even a problem for me. So the fact you said, we can go over an hour, I was like, whoa, most podcasts are like 45 to 45 minutes. Mate, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm really, really grateful that you've had me on. I hope I've given some good value. And hopefully we can continue this kind of friendship in the future, buddy.
I'm absolutely up for it. So just as we come to the end of the podcast, then part of the closing kind of tradition and reflection that we ask guests is, if you could think of one thing that comes to mind that helped you take back control over the time that you've been here, what is it and why?
Self-development, getting into learning about self-development. Hands down, I've always been into fitness from a young age, so that was never an issue. But actually understanding there's a different way to think. That will change your life. There is a different way to think, and it's so simple that, you can be grateful, you can visualize, you're not hurting anyone. Albert Einstein says, imagination will take you everywhere. One of the things when I do my visualization, I tell class, that feels silly. I said, yeah, but you're not hurting anyone. Mindfulness and just understanding that your thoughts control you, and they can also control your behaviors. And if you can master your thoughts, then you can master your mind, and then you can master your life.
Amazing. What a way to end it. Well, Tregs, thank you very much for joining me in session Taking Back Control. You've been amazing in the content you've talked about and sharing your stories, and I appreciate you being your genuine self.
Thank you so much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
All right,
Thank you for joining us on this episode of In Session Taking Back Control. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with anyone who might benefit from our discussions. For more resources and support, please visit us at Better You, and don't forget to tune in for another inspiring conversation. Until next time, take care and take back control.